Roger, you ever hear that phrase, woulda, coulda, shoulda?
Yeah.
Think about how many times people go through a recall, a company goes through a recall, and there's all these lessons that they learned, and I imagine that there's someone asking the question, I wish we learned this before we were doing this. To me, this puts a lot more emphasis and importance to the idea of being recall ready.
Sure.
So what should companies be doing before they're in a place where they have to be figuring out a recall?
Yeah, good question, Darin. If you remember one word out of this moment, practice.
Practice.
Practice is the word to remember. Practice every part of what you imagine you'll have to do. Practice how you make the decision, because that will inform you of the gaps that you may have in the data that you collect to make that decision. So practice making the decision. And if making the decision is easy, move on to the next step. Practice putting together the instructions and the communication that you need to provide to your customers so that they can do the right thing. Practice, because that will expose how you can templatize your communication, or what kinds of audiences you need to be communicating with. Because maybe you started after COVID selling direct online and you didn't used to sell directly to consumers. So now you need to have a consumer message as well as a business message. So practice first how you make the decision. Practice who you need to communicate with. Practice how you're going to describe what actions you need to take. And maybe even do some testing. Well, practice is testing. When you practice, you find out what works, and you also find out what doesn't work. So you can learn in a practice scenario what you would otherwise not learn until you actually did a live recall. And that's too late to learn. I mean, you want to learn so that you don't make the same mistake the next time. But practice will help you identify the gaps in your data, identify the gaps in your processes, and practice with your trading partners, with your customers, because that will identify gaps in your contact information. People change emails all the time. People retire, new people get hired, companies go through transitions. I mean, I remember when I was at a large retailer, the joke was, back in the days of printing, the joke was when you got the company directory on your desk, it was already out of date because some of the store directors had changed locations. And so practice how you make the decision, practice what data you collect, practice how you describe what needs to happen, and then practice communicating with your external customers. So don't just do an internal mock recall, do an external practice. And then take all of those learnings and build them back into your model so that when you practice again, you'll learn new things. So practice, practice, practice. It's what's required to get good at anything. And have a way of identifying gaps that you perceive, and a way of improving those gaps, correcting those gaps, and then retrying and learning even more, because you'll have new trading partners, you'll have new product lines, you'll have new regulatory requirements. All of these things are always dynamic, they're always changing. And so practice, and don't call it good when you practice once. Set up a regular schedule where you're practicing routinely, once or twice a year, so that you can identify gaps, close those gaps, and be ready, be actually recall ready when the event arises.
Roger, do you hear that music kind of in the distance here? But we've got some live music in the background.
I do, and I was trying to kind of time the way I was talking so it fit. I don't know how well I did though.
Well, I was a musician in high school.
I didn't know that.
I was a musician, and I bring this up because I learned something that's applicable to our conversation from my high school band room.
You had to practice, I bet.
It was about practice. There was a big banner on the wall. It said, "Practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect." So the idea of don't practice what's convenient, or don't practice so you're doing a mock recall, or you're just going to check some boxes. if you're doing what's convenient, but then you're trying to apply those lessons to when it's not convenient, you need to really be treating a drill, treating a mock recall as if it's a real thing. You need to involve the real participants. You need to treat every aspect of it as if it's the real thing. Otherwise, you're not going to truly learn everything you could be learning for when you have to be doing it for real.
Absolutely. And as a musician, when you practice, you recognize the parts of the piece that need a little bit of extra attention to get them right. Just like when you practice a recall, you'll realize the little parts of the process that need extra attention. And I guarantee you, communication and contact information will need extra attention. And you just expose those things so that you can get better at it.
And on an end note, you have to work together to figure out how to work in harmony.
There you go. Because everybody has their own role. And everybody thinks about playing their own role, not about playing somebody else's role. So that's a great point. Yeah.
Very good. All right, join us for our next episode where we're going to be talking about in the thick of it, in the middle of a recall.
Great. See you soon.
Perfect practice.